We're an incredible community here. We are much more powerful, I think, than we realize. We are so powerful that we have overwhelmed the UMass Parking Authority. And apologies for that, if anyone had issues with that. We were not warned, and it won't happen again. I'm just up here to do a few thank yous and then turn it over to the rest of our program. So, as you all know, this wonderful gathering does not happen without our amazing sponsors, including our platinum sponsors, the Executive Office of Energy and Environmental Affairs at the Commonwealth of Massachusetts, Mass Audubon, the trustees, our lead sponsors, the Nature Conservancy, our patron sponsors, Berkshire Natural Resources Council, Fields Pond Foundation, Greenbelt, Kestrel, Nantucket Conservation Foundation, Sheriff's Meadow Foundation, Sudbury Valley Trustees, and Wildlands Trust. Thank you so much to these very generous sponsors, and also to our supporters and contributors. Everyone gives what they can, and they contribute to making this all possible. So thank you for your financial support. Thank you to the 60 speakers and 33 exhibitors who have shared and are sharing for the rest of this afternoon their time and expertise. It's an incredible learning experience here, I'm sure you will all find. Thank you to our conference volunteers. You'll see them all over and in the rooms. We cannot do this without you. We are very, very grateful. And thank you to the donors to the Catterton Fund, which supported 30 conference scholarships this year. We're so cognizant of the fact that we need to bring up the next group of younger or newer people into our community, and this is one way of making that happen. Thank you also to our planning committee for the conference. This group is really an important group, and I encourage you, if you're interested in helping make this a successful conference in an ongoing way, that you think about supporting this group. They're the ones responsible for everything from picking the venue, the date, to all of the wonderful workshops that you are experiencing. It's a really, really great group, and it's time limited, so it's not like joining a board or anything. Thank you so much to the staff of the Mass Land Trust Coalition, Lauren Burke, Barbara Krenko, Ashley Hoffman, and Rob Johnson. They're usually not in the room when I thank them, but it would be really nice. Oh, Ashley's here. So let's have a little round of applause for them. Yeah.
That's the picture.
Oh, is this for you? Okay. Okay. All right, this is really the part that I was excited about doing. Although I love to thank everyone for their help and support. I hope all of you know by now that Rob Johnson will be retiring from Mass Land Trust Coalition in June. And I just want to take a brief moment to recognize and thank him, since this will be his last conference. This is really the only time we are all together. We do look forward to announcing his successor this spring. But in the meantime, we are very grateful for his continuing leadership. So I cannot do a complete job in the 2 minutes that Rob allocated for me for this, but I just want to give you some highlights. He joined the organization in the fall of 2019. You'll remember what happened in 2020, 2 weeks before our conference. So he was able, as he has done so many times in his years here, to pivot and get victory from the jaws of defeat. So he has been an amazing leader because of his combination of content knowledge and organizational wisdom. His team maintained the Stellar Conference. He oversaw the very significant expansion of our educational programs, launched a lot of new resources like our grants database, our video library, all with the attention to what land trust needs were. Focusing on climate, focusing on urban engagement, expanding our indigenous conservation relationships. And he has been a tireless and effective advocate on state policy matters, including helping to start the first legislative day for land trusts on Cape Cod, and after 20 years, helping to coordinate a coalition to finally pass the Public Lands Preservation Act in 2022. And a lot of the things that you won't have seen are organizational. He more than doubled our operating budget. He helped usher in new bylaws, a new strategic plan, a new improved website, a new and fabulous Conservation Advisory Council, and a highly functioning governance structure. And each of these accomplishments has positioned us to provide greater value for our whole community. So he helped us grow up. He has positioned us to do a great deal more. And as a board member and president, I have always trusted that Rob would make a decision that was fair, that was thoughtful, that was smart and strategic, based on information and guidance from the community, and that he would be a consummate professional. And I think that is the definition of good leadership. And I hope that in the next 3 months, each of you will find a time to thank him, to let him know what MLTC has meant to you, and to wish him well. So as I pass the mic over to Rob, let's give him the appreciation he deserves.
Thank you, everybody. Yeah, I should not have given her 2 minutes. But I want to say it's been an honor and a pleasure to work with this community of folks, and it's an amazing community of folks, and I appreciate the contributions all of you make to everything that we do. So much of what we do is a peer-based learning model, and you all are stellar at doing that. I hope you'll hold us accountable to continue to deliver programs that are relevant and give you just what you need to do your best work. So I want to continue really the thanks by acknowledging our Board of Trustees. It's my turn to thank them, and they have just been tremendously helpful. This is our current board, but the past board also that I've worked with, they've all been tremendous, and I hope you'll take a chance to thank them, because volunteer board service, as so many of you know, is a labor of love. Yeah. Just a couple of announcements I'm going to shout out. One, kind of in the department of small steps, long and coming. We've been working on a variety of thoughts about how to expand our Indigenous conservation partnerships, and a committee of folks with that very name was created last summer. A tremendous group of people that are our thought partners, meeting twice a month to think through how this community can do more to partner with Indigenous communities in Massachusetts. And the first sort of outward-facing program is about to launch. We're working very closely with Kim Toney, who's an archivist and librarian, guided a session this morning that many of you were at. She's helping us put together a 7-month learning journey program for Massachusetts Land Trust folks. And it's going to be an online-based program of readings and videos, punctuated by live discussion sessions that Kim and Indigenous colleagues will help facilitate. And we're very excited about it. So space will be limited, which means we're going to have to kind of create an application system that will be opening very soon. So watch for that. The program will probably go live in May and run for about 7 months. Excited about that. And I also want to say that a shout out to this, which you're hearing about more. Jody's going to speak to it, but I just want to say if you haven't been, accosted in the common area to talk about this yet, try to get accosted. This is our top legislative priority for the year, which is passing a dedicated funding source for conservation, and you can learn more about that on the website. My next role here is to invite up Kristen Sykes from our Conservation Advisory Council. She can join me. So our Conservation Advisory Council is presenters of the second annual Excellence in Conservation Award, and I'm inviting up Kristen to do it. Kristen is a member of our Advisory Council, a former member of our board. She's the Northeast Regional Director for the National Parks Conservation Association, advocating for national parks. Why would they need that?
They're fine. It's all good.
In the Northeast. And her other role is a farmer and an owner of Pie in the Sky Berry Farm, which is an organic APR farm raising delicious berries, flowers, and vegetables.
All right. Good afternoon. It's such a pleasure to be here. And as those who know me know, I wear many hats and sometimes a bike helmet. So now I'm putting on my farmer hat. I have my dahlia pin here to allude to my dahlia obsession. My husband and I have a farm in Northampton. And thanks to APR, we were able to buy the farm. But I'm here to talk about the Excellent in Conservation Award. And so, drum roll please, and the winner is, oh, and I have to do the slides, right? Pawtucket Farm Wildlife Sanctuary in Lowell, Massachusetts. So as a conservationist and a farmer, I'm really thrilled to be able to tell you a little bit more about this project, and more folks are going to come up and talk about it. But just so you're aware, the creation of the Pawtucket Farm Wildlife Sanctuary is a flagship example of teamwork across 4 organizations. And you all know many of these projects take collaboration and several years to get done. So Lowell Parks and Conservation Trust, Mass Audubon, Mill City Grows, and the City of Lowell, who all came together to conserve the last family farm in Lowell. Raleigh's Farm, as it was known, was a beloved Christmas tree farm, which also sold highly sought-after corn and tomatoes. In 2018, when Raleigh began planning his retirement, he turned to Jane Calvin from Lowell Parks and Conservation Trust to begin quiet conversations about a way to conserve the 20-acre farm that could be financially viable for him as a farmer and ensure permanent public access for the community. Given a long-standing partnership on after-school programming, Jane pulled in Mass Audubon, and next they brought in Mill City Grows as an urban local farm. After 5 years of effort, Mass Audubon closed successfully on a $4.5 million land acquisition in December 2023 with a conservation restriction held jointly by Lowell Parks and Conservation Trust and the City of Lowell. The project, very excitingly, represented Lowell's first use of Community Preservation Act funding, in addition to private funding, foundation donors, and a federal land water conservation fund grant, and a state earmark. So they took advantage of so many amazing tools, which I know you all have heard about today. So a little bit more about Pawtucket Farm. It harmonizes inclusive access to nature, resilient landscapes, and community-based agriculture. You may or may not know that Lowell ranks 314th out of 351 Massachusetts towns in percentage of protected open space, so this is really significant. It's a city of immigrants. Lowell is home to the second largest Cambodian community in the U.S., and many residents arrive as refugees or asylum seekers. 96% of Lowell's population lives in environmental justice neighborhoods. In planning for uses of the property, the partners orchestrated 9 listening sessions in 4 locally dominant languages to understand what this new asset could mean to Lowell. The chosen design reflects the community's strong desire for fresh food, nature education programs, summer camp, and opportunities for multi-generational outdoor gathering. This project, excitingly, has the potential to change the way nature is experienced in Lowell, especially for the more than 3,000 residents that are within a 10-minute walk of the property. After a year of site work and construction of an accessible trail, the sanctuary opened to the public in December 2024, with upgraded parking, a community garden, and farm programs following in 2025. But they have much more exciting work coming along. This year, the property will see planting of a food forest, which was included in a 5-year National Science Foundation funded research project looking at temperate agroforestry sites. And plans for next year include construction of additional educational and farm facilities. This, let's see, urban conservation projects are only getting more complicated, and our ward committee found this project to be an inspiring model for how to engage a diverse community and forge the creative partnerships necessary to complete them. And now, without further ado, I'd love to welcome Jane Calvin and partners from Mill City Grows and Mass Audubon to the stage to accept the award. I'll do my Vanna moment. Here's the award.
Thank you.
Jane, such a pleasure. Congratulations. And I'm going to turn it over to you.
Okay, great. I think this just goes right down. Okay. We'll save it for a photo op.
Yeah, absolutely.
All right. Thank you all so much for that wonderful reception. Receiving this award from our peers is just amazing. Let me first introduce the team, and there are a few more on the audience, and I would like them to stand up. The Lowell Parks and Conservation Trust, you guys. Allie is here representing the Mill City Grows. And our partner in all things amazing, education and land conservation, Mass Audubon. Where's the rest of the Mass Audubon team in the audience? You guys are an awesome team. I just want to make sure. I don't talk about partnership lightly. This has been a phenomenal partnership. And the vision for this through the trust happened way back in 2000. And we've been keeping an eye on this property for a couple of decades. And when the back acreage was protected, was developed by the landowner, we have a super ambitious dream that is still in process, as you saw. We still have a significant fundraising goal that we're trying to meet. But again, I say I don't talk about partnership lightly. This is an amazing partnership. And having 2 local organizations and a large statewide organization, it doesn't happen easily, but it is amazing when it really comes together like this one has. The other thing that's amazing about this project in general is that Kristen already gave you the stats on Lowell, 314 out of 351. There's only 5% of the land is protected. Urban conservation, it still doesn't quite get the due that it needs to. But the community of Lowell really deserves this project, and that's what this team has come together for. We realize that we can do this better together. And we can make much more of an impact together than if just one of these organizations stepped up to the plate to do this project. Lowell really deserves this investment. I really appreciate you for recognizing Lowell, recognizing this partnership, the value of urban conservation, and just the value of teamwork. And I thank you all.
Good afternoon, everyone. Can everyone hear me okay? All the way in the back? Yay! Okay, great. All right, well, I'm really excited to be here. And good afternoon and welcome. I'm Jody Valenta, Associate Vice President and Massachusetts State Director at Trust for Public Land. It's an honor to be here with so many partners, collaborators, and friends who work tirelessly to protect the landscapes and green spaces that make the Commonwealth so special. I'm especially excited to introduce our keynote speaker and my colleague, Dr. Pooja Sarin Tandon. She is someone who leads, actually, my notes are not showing, so I'm just going to wing this one, I guess. She is someone who leads TPL's work across Massachusetts, and I've seen myself, and as the director of our entire Massachusetts program, how parks, protected landscapes, and community green spaces support people's health, well-being, and the quality of life. Dr. Tandon's work brings that connection into sharp focus. She is the health director at TPL, a pediatrician, and a professor of pediatrics at the University of Washington. Her research focuses on children's health and equitable access to the outdoors. Dr. Tandon shares her insights in her book, Digging into Nature, Outdoor Adventures for Happier and Healthier Kids, showing how outdoor experiences support children's health, resilience, creativity, and learning. If you are interested in purchasing a copy of her book, look out in the common area for the Amherst Books table. Here in Massachusetts, TPL has completed 200 projects, protected over 14,000 acres, and we've connected more than 255,000 people to the outdoors. In Boston, TPL partners with communities to close park equity gaps and expand access to urban nature. In the Hyde Park neighborhood in Boston, TPL transformed Chittick Elementary School, a schoolyard mostly of asphalt, into a vibrant green space, giving thousands of residents and children access to trees, play areas, and outdoor learning. In Rosendale, the Archdale Park and Playground project is bringing green space to public housing development that previously had no safe outdoor areas. Walking paths, shaded seating, gardens, and gathering spaces will provide residents, children, and seniors alike with a place to connect to nature right outside their doors. In Southwick, TPL helped protect a portion of the New England Scenic Trail, preserving forested landscapes, wildlife habitat, and water resources while keeping this iconic trail open for everyone. Projects like these show that conservation happens at many scales, from large landscapes to local neighborhoods and urban cities. Investing in parks, green space, trails, and protected landscapes are essential. It's essential infrastructure, and putting effort into protecting all of these is important for more than just the land itself. And this principle drives the statewide Nature for Massachusetts campaign. In partnership with a broad coalition, many represented here today, TPL is working to establish a dedicated Nature for All fund that directs state sporting goods sales tax to parks, trails, forests, farms, and wildlife habitat. In Massachusetts, that will generate roughly $100 million per year to support conserved lands and outdoor spaces statewide. Last fall, many of you helped collect 100,000 signatures for the Protect Water and Nature ballot initiative, which would protect nature and water, right? But then also trails, parks, and recreation areas for everyone. We are in a strong position to secure this victory, either in the legislature this spring or at the ballot this fall. But we can't do it alone. We need you. Please join the coalition by going to natureformass.org or connecting with coalition members at their booths here today or milling around as they circulate. And please sign up to help us collect signatures in May and June. Protecting public land and water, creating parks, trails, green spaces in Massachusetts is important for the health and well-being of us all. And Dr. Tandon's work reminds us that parks, protected landscapes, and green spaces that we conserve are more than just land. They are investments in health, equity, and stronger communities. Please join me in giving a warm welcome to Dr. Pooja Sarin Tandon, pediatrician, researcher, author, and health director at Trust for Public Land. It's okay. Oh. It's okay. It was just showing nothing.
Thank you, Jody. Thank you, Rob. Thank you for inviting me to be here. It is my honor, and I'm just so inspired hearing about all of the work going on in Massachusetts. I have deep ties to the state. I became a pediatrician here. I met my husband here, and I continue to have friends and family in the state. So it's wonderful to be back here and share with you a bit about my work as a pediatrician and as the health director at TPL. So those of you familiar with TPL's work, and Jody gave a wonderful view and photographs of the work going on in Massachusetts, but we are a national organization working to protect land, create parks, trails, schoolyards, because we believe that outdoors is a fundamental human need and essential to our health and well-being. In fact, our most recent strategic plan really continues to elevate the importance of health and wellness in our work. And as we work in communities to grow historical and cultural connections, strengthen those bonds, and increase climate resilience, we know that all of that work ties back to our health and well-being as individuals, as communities, and as a planet. And all of this with a focus on equity, and all of this so important in our current moment. And I don't think I have to convince anyone in this audience that that perspective is international, it's global, that the experience of nature, that access to nature is a fundamental human right and essential for our health and well-being. In fact, the United Nations Convention on the Rights of the Child recommends that all children have opportunities to experience and interact with nature, and safe access to outdoor play, time in nature has long been endorsed by the American Academy of Pediatrics. So as a pediatrician, I thought I would share some examples of how the importance of nature and outdoor spaces has shown up in my work, in my clinical experience, and kind of nest that in the work that I'm doing with TPL and other partners around the country in recognizing that health is not determined by the four walls of a clinic or a hospital. I learned that very early on, that I can write a prescription, I can make a recommendation, but a child and a family may not be able to follow through on that if they don't have access to those resources in their communities, and we know that many do not. So I'll give examples at an individual level, and we'll come back to them and talk a little bit more about how my work and work of other pediatricians, doctors, researchers, public health folks, and collaborators, people like you have advanced this work on children's health and the importance of nature in it around the country. So the next few slides are going to sound like are kind of like you're in medical school, so just go along with it for a second. But these are cases that are drawn from my clinic, from my experience over the years, and we'll come back to them after a few minutes. So the first one is a very typical story that I might see of a child in the early years. 3-year-old, not sleeping well, having lots of tantrums. There might be some parents in here who are living through this right now. And the parents are asking me if they've heard about this idea of a nature-based preschool, and the kids have to be outside no matter what the weather. I'm in the Seattle area. I can't remember if I mentioned that, which means lots of rain. I know you all were hit with lots of snow this year. And the family's wondering, like, is this good for the child? Is it safe for them? Are they going to get sick more? Are they going to get hurt more? So those are the conversations we're having. Next, an 8-year-old, so a school-aged child who was recently diagnosed with ADHD, attention deficit hyperactivity disorder. About 8 to 10% of people in our country have that diagnosis, and maybe others that are experiencing symptoms of ADHD. And this child is having a lot of challenges at school, and his family is wondering, does screen time have anything to do with this in terms of contributing to symptoms? How can we think about physical activity or in sports as part of managing the symptoms? We're not sure we want to do any sort of medication. So we had a conversation about that. Children with special health care needs. So this was a 12-year-old, but children really of any age with physical limitations, disabilities, intellectual disabilities, and other special health care needs. In this case, the family, they didn't bring this up, but as part of our routine well child visit, we might ask them about, how are you getting outside? What are some of the things you enjoy doing? And the family reported that they actually don't spend a lot of time outdoors because they're nervous about safety and access for their child who's in a wheelchair. And finally, this is something that I can tell you that when I trained in Boston Medical Center, Boston Children's Hospital over 20 years ago, I barely learned how to prescribe medications for depression or anxiety or ADHD. Those were all referred to child psychiatry. And now almost every day in clinic, there is a patient who's either being diagnosed or we're checking in on their treatment plan. And as I'm working with medical students and resident, behavioral health is a core of pediatric training. There are just not enough mental health providers. And this is becoming very routine pediatric care where we're screening for depression and anxiety and helping children, teenagers, and families navigate it. And in this case, this young person is spending a lot of her free time in her room on devices and on a screen reports many symptoms of depression. Just last week, actually, I saw twins, 17-year-old twins, who told me that they live in the same house, but they both eat dinner in their own rooms in front of their own computers. And so, there's a lot of loneliness even when we're living in the same homes with our family members. So cases like this and many others brought together pediatricians, pediatric researchers, and several of us right around 2018, 2019. We wanted to look at what do we know? What is the scientific evidence for time outdoors and nature and how it impacts child health? And even though it certainly seemed obvious to a pediatrician, to any parent, that children need opportunities to play and be outdoors and move their bodies, sometimes, even when it seems obvious, these things can be relegated to the realm of luxury or nice to have or optional or just not prioritized the way that some of us believe it should in childhood, in our schools and early learning centers, in our policy decisions, in our investments. And we felt that if we could aggregate the evidence, showcase it, that might help move the needle with funders, with policymakers, with our colleagues even. And so we did a systematic review, which is where we search all of the peer-reviewed literature and multiple databases. We ended up with thousands that came initially and whittled those down to about 300 scientific papers that we reviewed in more detail and published this paper. And I'll share some of the highlights of what we found in that study that's now been published about 4 years ago, and additional things that we've learned along the way as they relate to child health, many of them with implications for the whole lifespan. So physical activity, this is, I think like over 90 of the 300 papers we studied were about physical activity, and that seems like the one that we might think of most easily. Time outdoors, access to parks and trails is important for getting people spaces where they can be physically active. And it's a robust evidence base for it. People move their bodies more. If we assess through physical fitness assessments and motor skills, children who spend more time outdoors, running, climbing, jumping, balancing, have that physical literacy, which is the skills and the confidence to engage in physical activity. If they get this in those early years, kind of before 5 or 6, they're more likely to have those skills to engage in sports and other active living later on in life. And that can be related to a healthier weight status, although there's quite a significant body of evidence showing that even if your weight does not change, being physically active is important for your cardiac health, for decreasing your risk of cancer, and a range of other chronic health conditions in childhood and adulthood. I've been speaking more about this idea of green time as an antidote to screen time. We all know that we are spending way too much time on screens, and it's not just the quantity, it's the quality as well. I think about the screen and our media diet, the advertising, the cyberbullying, the inappropriate content. So when you think about both quantity and quality, there are many ways to try to limit it. It's hard, but I think getting outdoors, getting into that green time as part of our daily schedule is a compelling strategy, and also improves our sleep based on the science. And I'll just mention that this is particularly important because less than 1 in 4 people in our country meet the recommendations for physical activity, which for children is 60 minutes a day of moderate to vigorous physical activity, and adults about 150 minutes a week. And you can break that down, it divides up to about 22 minutes a day, or you can do it all on the weekend, and however, but 150 minutes a day for adults. Mental health, this is I would say the second most robust category of evidence around nature and child health, and throughout the lifespan. Many other systematic reviews have also looked at this, have focused on young youth and adults, and many studies have found that spending time in nature is associated with lower stress levels, reduced symptoms of depression and anxiety, more focus, more attention, so for children with ADHD, for example. And I like to call out outdoor recess in particular. For children, schools are one of the most equitable places to advocate for time outdoors and nature access, so you're not limiting it to what's available in their neighborhood, what their family has time for. And at school, we know that there are disparities in outdoor recess opportunities. In Washington State, we did a survey that found some children got less than 10 minutes a day in elementary school, and some got 50 minutes a day. So there's a big range. Depends, as you can imagine, on the school's resources and evidence that shows that when children get daily outdoor recess or more outdoor recess, it's associated with, of course, more physical activity, but also better behavior, both on the playground and when they return back into the classroom, which is really important for teachers. A couple of other highlights. I'll go through these more quickly, but large studies. There's one study in Europe with over 70 or 80,000 pregnant people found that even living near green space through satellite imagery and based on their home address, they did these studies and found a correlation between green space and better birth outcomes. I've found some unexpected allies in the eye doctors, and I've been invited in the fall to speak at a conference of the pediatric ophthalmologists that time outdoors has been, even 20 to 40 minutes a day, has been associated with less risk of myopia or needing glasses for distance and less progression. And about half of the world's population is expected to be myopic by 2050, I think is what they're predicting. So they actually put out a call saying that children need to spend time outdoors as a public health implication for their vision. there are different theories on that. Is it the vitamin D? Is it the light? Is it that they're not focusing on close range activities like screens and just getting that long, the opportunity to relax their eyes in that way? I think that those are still like research in progress, but many, many correlational studies about the benefits of outdoors for vision. Pediatricians really care about what children eat, and we know that having access to community gardens in preschools and schools is associated with not just learning, of course, about where their food comes from, but also trying different fruits and vegetables. And of course, from an environmental justice perspective, we know that parks, trees, green spaces can also improve air quality and reduce noise pollution and reduce the impact of extreme heat, which is plaguing many parts of our country with, I think, in the last 10 years, 9 of them have been the hottest in human history. So this is just to kind of zone out and see the whole range of health benefits. Some may not have even made it to this list, but I wanted to emphasize that while my work has focused on children in terms of my research and my clinical background, the health benefits extend from prenatally into healthy aging, and there's solid and increasing evidence that being outdoors, spending time in nature, and having access is important for our health and our well-being, and of course for our reciprocal relationship with planetary health as well. There's more work now around engaging young people in ecological restoration work, for example, can be linked to having them feeling more hopeful about climate change and just hopeful about our planet's future. Okay, so we're going to come back to the cases, and I'll share a little bit about some of what we might talk about in these cases, and importantly, to draw that connection between what happens in a checkup or a clinic visit and how important their community and local and regional resources and policies can be to this child's health. So in this case, very typical, like not sleeping well, tantrums, yes, almost every preschooler we see has those concerns. But when we explore more about their outdoor time or their nature opportunities, sometimes families have not considered that as part of how they're dealing with this. And sometimes it's not just the parents or the adults that are living with the child that really can make too much of a difference, because Three-quarters of preschool-age children are in the care of other adults during their waking hours, and that could be relatives, grandparents, nannies, or formal childcare. So one of the things we really emphasize is what's going on at the preschool, and what's going on when you might be at work, and can there be more opportunity for the child to run around and play outside. And we know from early childhood educators that often when children are outdoors, they're actually, they're better behaved. The tantrums and the behavioral things become less challenging for some children. What are the indoor activities that can be moved outdoors in terms of meals or play dates or learning time, art and music? And then in the specific question here, as far as nature preschool, I tell them about a couple of studies, including one that I worked with a master's student many years ago, that children in an all-day nature preschool did not have more injuries or more illnesses compared to a more traditional indoor model. So I tell them it's safe, and if it's a model that works for them, most of these wonderful programs will give you guidance on how children need to dress and how they do rest time and meals outdoors, and if it's a model that works for their family, wonderful. If not, think about how more outdoor and nature time can be incorporated into whatever model or whatever their days look like. With our child with the ADHD symptoms, so children with ADHD are disproportionately more likely to spend more time on screens, be physically inactive, and have a harder time with sleep. That's just part of their physiology, if you will. And sometimes children with ADHD also have a harder time participating in structured programs. So it can be tricky for families where screen time can be easier to get through the day or get through an activity or an event. In this case, though, this child, the family did, after our conversation, sign him up for soccer, and it turned out to be wildly successful for them. I think the regular practices, the engaging with peers in a way that was positively reinforcing for him, did translate to better sleep and better behavior even at other times of the day. And then we talked about kind of different programs, swim lessons, summer camps that, sometimes they may have to make sure that they're catering well and the staff and child ratios are appropriate for what the child needs. But for children with neuroatypical children, I think finding activities, particularly those with movement and physical activity, can be part of their management. For children with special health care needs, I think it's really important to engage the entire healthcare team. There may be physical therapists, occupational therapists, and others that are needed to safely help that child navigate outdoor spaces. And depending on what the diagnosis is, sometimes when a child is initially diagnosed with a new condition, I had a patient with diabetes, and the family used to love going camping, and then they stopped. They were like, well, now we can't do this. And there may be a period of reset and readjustment, but a child with almost any health condition can enjoy the outdoors. And it may involve modifying the activities, bringing some extra stuff, going to places that feel more safe, but sometimes the healthcare provider needs to prompt that. Sometimes the family needs to prompt that conversation to find out what is it that's going to work for this family. And luckily, we do have many programs around the country, special summer camps, often staffed by nurses and doctors who, for children with very special health needs and considerations. And community resources, parks that have special vehicles and special accommodations that can make those spaces more inclusive and welcoming. And a reminder to the whole family that, going through whatever healthcare issue their family is dealing with might be a little bit easier if they're able to find some time in nature alone or as a family together. And then with teenagers, I think, everything I said applies, but we may need to find the motivation in a different way. And there's a technique that we're taught called motivational interviewing, where you're really trying to connect with what is this young person's interests, what might get them to leave their room. And in the case of the patient I had mentioned, they were really interested in art and photography, and so nature photography was the way that we decided that for half an hour every weekend they were going to go outside and take photos with their phone. And so I'm kind of rethinking it's not a green time versus screen time, but sometimes screens, whether it's through apps that allow you to identify nature, there are some outdoor games, the camera function. For some people, that could be a gateway to getting outdoors and maybe hopefully finding other ways to connect and spend time outdoors. For some adolescents, I think being out there with peers and getting a job, getting an internship, those might be other ways to motivate that time outdoors. So how does this magical prescription work? This thing that can work for people of almost any age and have a positive impact on so many health conditions. And it's one of the few things that as a doctor I can prescribe for prevention and for treatment of certain conditions. So there are many different pathways, some of which we've talked about. There's the qualities of the nature itself, the ability to inspire awe and restore our cognitive functions, to bring our stress levels down. There are the ways that natural elements can mitigate the environmental harms that might affect our communities in terms of noise and heat and air that we talked about, the physical activity. And then there's the people that we are there with, the social connections with our family members, with our community members, and maybe even meeting somebody you haven't met before in a park, for example. And having more parks, renovating vacant spaces have also been linked to community safety and community connection. Unfortunately, there are a lot of barriers and challenges that are faced by people in our across the country in terms of weather and time and safety concerns and screens and lack of access. And our data at TPL has shown that 1 in 3 people in our country do not have easy access to a park within a 10-minute walk or about half a mile. And over 28 million of them are children. And of course, that access is marked by systemic, historical, and ongoing injustices. And so I'll, in closing and in the next few slides, highlight some ways that we've been working in that space. And because the challenges are multifactorial, multi-sector, we need solutions that also span different sectors and different levels of impact. This model is, this is a socio-ecological model of health, which is a framework emphasizing that health behaviors and health outcomes in that innermost circle, the interpersonal, are determined by so many levels. They're determined by our families, by our institutions, our communities, and our policies. So this idea that you know, as a doctor or as a clinical visit, I might be focusing on that innermost circle of a child and a family unit, but what that child or family is able to do is nested within all of these other circles. But I'll give examples that touch upon some of these different levels. So at that innermost level, at that checkup visit that a child is having, one initiative that we've been working on is called Project Nature. And it's a clinic-based resource. So there's professional development, there are online resources, and a brochure, and age-appropriate nature toys. So when that 3-year-old is coming in for their checkup, they might get a shovel or a magnifying glass and just a little guidance, a little conversation with their family doctor or their pediatrician to encourage them to spend time outdoors and to address challenges and barriers that might be coming up. We found that pediatricians want to have this conversation. It's just often not prioritized. They don't know what to say. And having a sidewalk chalk to give the child always makes it much more appealing to do so. So we've been piloting this work in Washington State, published on it, and looking to scale. Anywhere where children are receiving checkups is a place that could adopt that model. And then moving to the more institutional and community level work is, I love to highlight the schoolyards work that TPL and other similar organizations around the country are working on, because schools are an underutilized resource in our country. In some communities, they're the largest landowners, and opening schoolyards, so after hours use of schools as parks, would increase access to at least 37 million people who don't have easy access to a park. And in addition to creating that park and that open space, they can also be a resource for climate resilience in terms of stormwater management and cooling communities. And so at TPL, we are really working on this kind of 4-part scaling strategy. We're working on creating those schoolyards, educating the larger community, advocating for funding and support, and empowering a broader coalition to catalyze this type of change. And we work with community, the community in a community participatory process where children and staff members are helping design the schoolyard of their dreams. And we have about 400 schoolyards completed or in progress around the country, including on tribal lands, and some wonderful ones in progress in Massachusetts. And in Tacoma, Washington, this was the first program that I was most closely involved with. We did a research study before and after renovation of a schoolyard and found that there was over 50% increase in physical activity by children. and community use, 3 times greater community use, 6 times greater by children when you look just by age group after hours, so after school and on weekends, really solidifying this as a valuable community strategy for health and well-being and social connections. And the last kind of strategy I'd like to highlight is something that we've been working on the policy level in trying to bring the health sector and the park sector together. And this is based on an IRS requirement for nonprofit hospitals to do a community health needs assessment every 3 years, identify community priorities, and direct community benefit dollars, investments into their community for community health. And most community priorities often focus on things like chronic illness and mental health concerns, which we know can be connected to or improved upon with parks and green space and trails. But in a study that we did of 50 community health needs assessments, we looked at large hospitals across 50 cities. Only about half of them even mentioned parks, trails, green space at all. And even the ones that did were, it was often in a very cursory manner. But there are examples, there are exemplars of hospitals. The Children's Hospital of Philadelphia has invested in schoolyards in Philadelphia. Boston Medical Center has a rooftop, a green garden on their roof. So there are ways that our hospital system, our health system can create green space both in their own, on their own property and in the communities that they serve. And we've, in this publication, which you can find at tpl.org, we offer different recommendations and suggestions on how hospitals and parks could work together. All right, well, at a time that I think so many of us are feeling disconnected from nature and from one another, we know that spending time outdoors can reduce our stress, improve our mental health, and bring our communities together. And I always remind everyone that there's no one right way to be outdoors. It's a way of really finding for yourself, for your family, for the people that you work with, how this can be personally meaningful for you. And as we head into Earth Month, I do want to share that TPL is celebrating where people are happiest, which is outside, with our Happiest Outside campaign, so that all of us can experience the wonder and the joy and the health of being outdoors. So thank you for your time, and I'm happy to take a few questions. I know there are microphones in the aisles, and thank you again.
Hello? There we go. So thank you, and I'd like to give a shout out to TPL for something you may not know about. But a fellow that I'm not sure you mentioned today, but Richard Louv, who wrote Last Child in the Woods, and came out with the Children in Nature Network, which so much is in consonance with what you talked about today. Well, in 2005, when that book came out, TPL invited him to Massachusetts to give a talk, and I was there, so thank you very much for doing that.
Oh, yes. Yes, Richard Louv, and that book is definitely inspirational in my work as well. So yeah, I appreciate the shout out to them. Yes.
Hello. Okay. Hi. I work for Sudbury Valley Trustees, which is a land trust between Boston and Worcester, and we serve 36 communities. And we're currently working on early stages of developing a nature play area at our headquarters. And I wondered if you had any thoughts about what types of things we should incorporate.
What is the age group that you're thinking about?
All ages. But actually, I left out an important detail. It's part of our accessible all persons trail. And so one of the key things is that we would really like children of all abilities and their caretakers of all abilities to be able to benefit from the playscape.
I love that question, and I think the simplest way would be to, that I could suggest is to ask the potential users. And I think that that's definitely a model that TPL uses. There's another example from the Seattle area, and if you go to their website, I think it's now called Pathways Park. It started as Eli's Park. It was based on a young child who had disabilities, and their physical therapist and family got together, and then they engaged their community. They had their youth advisory board, they had people of different ages, really sharing what is it that they would love to see in their park. And I think getting that community input and then working with an experienced designers and folks who've maybe done this before might be the best way to create a space that is inclusive and welcoming and serving the needs of all the different potential users. One more question, okay.
Hello. Thank you very much for this really important topic. I can personally relate to the first case study you had, and in particular this winter was really challenging, getting kids outside and the outside time they need. And I was wondering if you could speak to kind of that impact of specifically a New England winter exacerbating those kind of health impacts, and if you are aware of any kind of creative solutions at organizations or things that you would recommend for kind of assisting in getting children outside and folks outside even in the kind of difficult winter times.
Yes, I mean, weather is one of the most consistent barriers that we hear from people around the country, and it can be cold weather, rainy weather, hot weather, and depending on what the weather situation is. I mean, I think a few things come to mind. One of the nature preschools, the all-outdoor preschool partners that I've worked with in the past, and others have used this saying of, there's no such thing as bad weather, just you need the right clothing choices kind of thing. And I know that, so I'm going to say that and recognize that, not everyone has access to all the right gear and to stay waterproof, and there may be community libraries and resources needed to make sure people can get the clothing that they need to stay warm and dry, for example, or dress appropriately for extreme heat. We may need to modify the amount of time that children are spending outdoors and the time of day when they're going outside in terms of the coolest types of day for the extreme heat, and then, thinking about short breaks. And it might take little ones a long time to dress and undress, but that's also part of what they need to learn in life, and so it's okay if it takes them a while and you go outside for 15 minutes and come back. And then, there are extreme weathers. There is, really bad air quality or really cold, really hot weather when it just may not be safe for children to be outdoors. And if there's not for example, a covered or semi-outdoor area, those may be opportunities to bring the outdoors inside. And that can look like snow in aluminum trays. We've seen childcare providers come up with creative ways to bring snow indoors, to bring in flowers and petals and twigs and sand inside their classrooms, growing activities, even nature books. I mean, we talk about that. Like, there are so many incredible children's books for kids of all ages where if there are brief periods of the year when outdoors is just not feasible, how can views of nature, maybe even virtual nature, and nature in books be part of the nature environment that a child is growing up in? All right. Thank you.